My name is Sophia, and until recently, I used to go for a walk every night. It was my way of disconnecting from work and routine. I live alone in a small apartment in a fairly quiet neighborhood, and after a day full of meetings and screens, walking through the quiet streets helped me clear my mind. I had never been afraid to walk at night, as I knew the streets well, and the neighborhood had always been safe. But that changed recently, and now I can't even think about going for a walk without a shiver running down my spine. It all started one night in October. I remember that the temperature had dropped lower than expected, and I had put on a light coat before going out. It was 10:30 at night, as usual. The streets were empty, as usual, and most of the lights in the houses were already out. The avenue I was walking along was poorly lit,
But I didn't think much about that.
I was used to it. I had my headphones on, listening to my favorite music, and I was moving along at a good pace, enjoying the stillness. But suddenly, I started to feel something strange, as if someone was watching me. I don't know where that feeling came from, but it was strong enough to make me take off my headphones. I stopped for a moment, looking around. I didn't hear or see anything unusual, just the echo of my own footsteps echoing in the empty street. I shook my head, telling myself I was being paranoid. It was just another quiet night. However, as I continued walking, I noticed a shadow in the distance. It was hard to make it out in the gloom, but there was definitely someone in the distance, walking behind me. My first reaction was discomfort, but I thought it was probably just another person walking home. My pace a little. It wasn't that unusual. Not out of fear, but to put some more distance between us. Looking out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that the figure was still there, but what caught my attention the most was how slowly he walked, almost as if he was not in a hurry, but always keeping the same distance. I could see the silhouette of a hat, something unusual at that hour and in that place. It made me uncomfortable, but I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a guy in a hat walking late. Nothing more. I passed one of the main streets that connected to my usual route and decided to detour down a side street that I didn't use much, but it shortened the way to my house. As I did so, I looked back, just to make sure the man wasn't following me, and, to my relief, I didn't see him. I thought he had finally gone another way, or maybe it had all been a figment of my imagination. I breathed a little easier, although I still felt a slight tension in the air. I continued walking down the side street, which was much darker and narrower than the main street. There were almost no lights on in the houses, and the silence was deeper. But just as I was about to relax completely, I saw him again. The man in the hat was there, standing at the end of the street, as if he had been waiting for me. I don't know how he got there so quickly. It couldn't be the same guy, could it? I tried to stay calm and think logically. Maybe it was just someone else. Maybe there was more than one man in a hat out there that night. But what disturbed me was how he was standing, completely still, watching me, without moving. His presence alone made me feel a tightness in my chest, a sense of danger I had never experienced before. I quickened my pace, almost without thinking, and he was still there, unmoving. I walked past him, keeping my distance, and when I did, my eyes met his briefly. Empty. I don't know how to describe it, but there was nothing in his gaze. He didn't look alive or dead. He just stood there, watching me with those empty eyes. But I forced myself to stay calm. I could not show fear. I turned the next corner, and when I did, the man disappeared. He was gone. I looked back several times, hoping to see him again, but there was no sign of him. The relief was temporary, because just at that moment, the lights of the street lamps illuminating the street began to go out one by one, as if a shadow was moving behind me. I had no choice but to run. My legs were shaking as I tried to get home as fast as possible. Finally, I arrived. The lights of my apartment greeted me like a sanctuary. I entered, closed the door tightly, and stood there, leaning against the wood, trying to control my breathing. I felt that something dark had followed me all the way. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the figure of the man in the hat standing at the end of the street, watching me. The next day, I tried to convince myself that it had all been my imagination. Perhaps the darkness, tiredness, and the silence of the night had played a trick on me. But when I told a friend about it, she looked at me with a strange expression. "I've heard of him," she told me quietly. She told me that several people in the neighborhood had seen the man in the hat on different streets, always at night, always keeping their distance, and always disappearing when they approached. Since then, I avoid walking alone at night. I don't know who or what that man was, but what I do know is that there was something about his presence that was not of this world. And although I have not seen him since that night, I always feel that he is out there, hiding somewhere, watching me from the shadows. I've told my story, but now I want to know if anyone else has experienced something similar. I know there are many stories of encounters with dark figures, unexplained shadows, or people who simply shouldn't be there. If you've seen someone similar to the man in the hat, if you've ever felt that dense, cold presence while walking at night, have you been followed by a figure that disappears without a trace? Have you felt that something or someone was watching you from the dark? It is not easy to talk about this because at first it sounds like a simple paranoia or an illusion caused by the lack of light. But those of us who have experienced something like this know that there is more behind it. There are things that we can't explain, that are out there, lurking in the shadows, and that are not talked about enough. Leave a comment and tell me about your experience. It doesn't matter if you think it sounds strange or implausible. No one here will judge you. There are many of us who have had encounters we can't forget. Perhaps by sharing what we experience, we can find answers, or at least comfort in knowing that we are not alone in these experiences. Has anyone else seen the man in the hat or some other entity on their nightly walks? I will be reading all your stories. Maybe we can find something that will make us better understand what really happens in the dark.